our title reader, Pat Carlson. Thank you, Pat. Okay, I'm going to show a slide here. And so let's see, share my screen. There. And expand. Getting the hourglass. So our judge tonight is Doug Stinson. Doug has judged for us before. I count this being his 4th time doing a monthly competition for us. And I wanted to show a couple of slides of some of the other stuff that Doug is working on. See if I can get the screen to go full screen. And one is he founded something called the Bay Area Photo Scene. I don't know if you could, yeah, there you go. Which, and I have the website shown on this slide. And the reason I'm showing slides is so that when, if you want to look up exactly where that link is, you'll see it on the video recording of this meeting. And that's a very interesting website, I find, because it lists all of the local events in the Bay Area related to photography. Very interesting. Shows, exhibits, speakers, etc. The other thing is a very interesting website that he has. Is just sort of a blog. It has video links in it. And I found this to be fascinating. And I'm showing the link there on this slide as well that you can look at. But a range of topics. One caught my eye in the lower right. Can camera clubs learn from fine art photography? I think the answer is yes. A really interesting video that he did on something called the Scheimpflug principle, which is how to get 2 objects in focus at the same time by tilting the plane of the photograph. So this is with old view cameras. He has a very interesting video on actually using an old view camera. It belonged to his grandfather that was something like 100 years old, the camera that is. So those are 2 things I wanted to cover quickly in my introduction. And now I'll stop to share.
Wow, thanks very much for that.
My pleasure.
Impressive.
Very
quickly,
Yeah.
the closed captioning popped up on my screen.
Mine too.
Yeah,
And is
yes.
that a new Zoom feature where
No,
the host?
no, I'll explain. That's the program, the Microsoft program I'm using to show slides, and I just left on the fact that it can do captions. So it's taking my voice and giving you the caption as well.
It would be truly excellent if we could somehow figure out how to get that onto our competition video for those of us like me that are hearing challenged.
Interesting point. It's a feature of PowerPoint.
It is a feature of Zoom as well. You can do it, but
you can do it in Zoom.
It's not. Yeah, it's not great. I mean, it's not going to distinguish who's speaking, and the words are not. Doesn't pick up words all that clearly, but you can do it. I've had trouble though trying to actually maintain the copy of it after I sign off, like to save it somehow. So I don't know, it'd be worth looking into a little bit more, but you can definitely do it.
We'll explore it later.
Okay.
Thank you.
Share my screen again. And we are ready to start. Once I click one more button. Okay, Creative Basic. And I'll turn it over to Pat and Doug.
You want me to click? Or are you clicking?
Got it. I'll click.
All right. Optical illusion, a building located in San Francisco.
Well, I think this is great observation. to see this and then interpret it in your mind and then create that interpretation as a photograph. So, I mean, that's really quite wonderful. And when I first looked at this, I thought maybe it was a resolution test chart or something. So it really made me think. It's still not clear to me how the building actually looks like this. So that's great. I mean, it keeps you thinking and wondering about what's going on. One of the things I did like about it particularly is you have the very high contrast black on white over most of it, but at the very top you have that strip, and now you have some shadow areas, some areas that are mid-tones there. That contrast between that and the dark black and white pattern at the bottom, I think is particularly effective. It gives a little bit more realism to it. So, it gets it out of that test pattern thing and looking like, well, maybe this is a building. So I think that's great. Maybe the upper right-hand corner is a little bit too tight to the top of the frame, but in an abstract like this doesn't matter that much. There is a little white streak up there too that maybe you might consider getting rid of. Thank you.
Bill, cursor on screen.
Thank you. Creative intermediate, 5 images.
Did you want me to read the creative part too?
If
as
you
well
wish,
as
yeah.
Okay, sure, I'll do that. Sorry. Grapevines grow into a mural.
Yeah, it's very mysterious. This could be shadows. I really find the background texture quite interesting. I think that adds a lot to it, talking about transferring it into being a mural. I'm not sure that the extra pattern formed by those dark marks and occasional positions really adds a lot to it, and maybe even detracts a little bit. I think you might want to try it with and without them and see which one you like. And I don't know if you could move it somehow a little bit lower in the frame, because there's a lot of negative space in the lower right-hand corner that isn't defining anything. So it's not contributing a lot. And it might just be a little bit balanced if that horizontal line was a little bit lower. Thank you.
Doug, I think your right and left are different than what we're seeing, because you referred to empty space on the right, and I was seeing it on the left.
I'm sorry, you're right. It's the lower left-hand corner. I don't know what I said right. Thank you for pointing that out.
Doing the Wachika strut.
Yeah, I really found this to be fun to look at. Again, creative observation and interpretation. To be honest, the first thing I saw in this picture was the ripples, and then they led me to the bird. So I thought that worked quite nicely. A really good title that goes along with the image. I really see strutting when I look at this picture, and the title sort of sets me up and helps me see that. This is a good example of breaking the rule that we sometimes hear about having lots of space for the main object to move into. Obviously, the bird is moving towards the left and it is close to the edge. But I think it's a good example of when you should break this rule. Having it close to the edge builds tension, and it calls attention to the type of motion, particularly with that stream of ripples behind it. Okay, thank you.
Petanque under the plane trees, oops, France.
Yeah, it's an interesting technique to reduce this image to a set of discrete levels of tone, each one kind of outlined with the black. I think that's really interesting. I think it was very clever to make the faces look more realistic than the rest of the picture, but still have them somewhat abstract. I think is a little bit too easy to miss the 3 balls in the picture. I was wondering if maybe you want to make those color as well to make them stand out since this is about a game that's being played under these trees. I do have a question. I'm not sure what the purpose of the color is. I don't know if there's a consistent pattern in how the color is being used. In the people, it makes some sense, I guess. The most mysterious thing to me is that house in the background on the right. I don't quite know why that is being handled differently than the rest of the picture. And because it's different, it does draw my attention there. But it doesn't seem to have much point to having me look at that. Okay, next, please.
Grief, with apologies to Magritte.
Well, here we have a very conceptual photograph. The visual reference to Magritte is sufficient but subtle. There's no apple or pipe in the picture that would kind of hit you over the head with the Magritte reference. And the title helps us understand that. It might have been a little bit better if the person was wearing a bowler hat, but unless this was posed, you probably had no control over that. The picture of the person is very sharp, very realistic, including the water breaking around his feet. But the rest of the picture has this nice, lovely, soft, misty waves, which gives a very interesting interpretation. I like the color grading, the overall brown gray to the image. I think that works very well with your theme here, as opposed to like blue water. And the square format with this very substantial vignette also contributes to this feeling of grief and the reference to Magritte. Next, please.
Dessert.
Yeah, very interesting sort of combination of abstract and realism mixed together. It really does look kind of luscious. I mean, sort of the top particularly looks kind of like maybe honey dripping over an edge or something to do that, like that. And then the more not so obvious abstract in the middle kind of has a tension there, which I think that works. The kind of, and oh, by the way, I think the use of the way you use focus here, where things towards the lower part of the image are not quite as in focus as the top, actually gives it a sense of depth. I feel like the bottom part of the picture maybe is more horizontal and the top part more vertical. I think that works. The lower right-hand corner maybe could use something to make it a little bit more interesting. It definitely doesn't quite have the same energy that the rest of the photograph has. Thank you.
Creative. Thursday, advanced 7 images. Devil or angel?
Yeah, the reflection and rotation that you've done to create the appearance of like wings is, I think, very effective. And of course, that contributes, helps that the title reinforces that interpretation. The kind of center part where I don't know whether that was originally twigs sticking out of the water, and I don't know why it has the a white glow there, but that kind of forms the body of devil or angel. I think that's working quite well as well. I also really appreciate the way the branches have this illumination on them in some places. It not only gives them that three-dimensional feel, but it does add a little bit of both beauty and mystery to it. I just, as a comment, really doesn't affect my opinion about the image, but along the bottom border from the center to the right, it looks like there's an extra dark line with a little white dash on there. No clue how it got there. It's probably left over from something in the middle of your processing. For the final picture, you probably want to get rid of that. Okay, thank you.
The Guardian.
Yeah, I think you have an effective use of visual technique to communicate the emotion of a guardian angel, whether that angel is spiritual or physical. The swirl introduces the idea of maybe a separate plane of existence, and the dark circular orange-brown tree canopy in the upper right is kind of a pivot point around which everything is circulating. So all in all, I think is using some visual themes in order to create this feeling about a guardian is quite effective. Thank you.
Baleen and barnacles, Southern Right Whale Peninsula Valdez in Patagonia, Argentina.
Yeah, the title sets us up for kind of expecting a scientific exposition, and that's perhaps why that's what I see here. Such out of context framing could be considered creative, or it could be just what's required to show what you claim in the title. So I'm not sure whether I am getting the full appreciation of what you're trying to do in this image in the creative category. I will also comment from a technical point of view that the lower right-hand corner just looks like kind of a random weird collection of light and dark areas. I'm not sure what to make of it, whether there's maybe too much sharpening going on there or too low a resolution. It's not clear to me, but it doesn't look like it's a cohesive part of the rest of the image. Thank you.
Excited for the game. Albert was first to arrive.
Yeah, another conceptual photograph. It has a strange through the looking glass type of view of a created world. Very clever. I think it's a very interesting use of an extreme perspective where we're looking straight down on this and consequently have kind of a weird perspective of the net that's there. And the only kind of one problem I think that I have with this is I just don't think the resolution is high enough for me to recognize Albert there and get a real feeling for like what that is, whether it's a person or an animal or I don't know what it is. It just needs to be bigger. And I know you probably want it to be small but for what we're trying to show here, what you're trying to show here, but then there isn't just enough resolution for me to really figure out what it is. Okay, thanks.
Shallow reflection.
It's interesting that you've got probably created by the reflection or something, I'm not sure, but you have this perspective of being low and looking up at the bird, which makes it feel really heroic, which is kind of an interesting effect. I really like the pattern in the background. The color palette seems really imbues this with kind of a sense of an Arcadian vision, maybe a little bit reminiscent of Maxwell Parrish. So I think that makes it quite interesting. I think the cropping at the bottom is a little bit uncomfortable. Things look a little bit cut off artificially, that it doesn't really flow too naturally down there. So I don't know if you have more image or not, or what's there, and you might not be able to do anything about it, but that's just one of the things I would consider thinking about. You also might want to at least think about cropping in a little bit from the left, maybe past that green patch that's in the sort of near the lower third of the left-hand side, and see what you think about that. Okay, thanks.
Turbulent moonset.
Yeah, it really looks like I'm looking through some kind of blizzard here. I think it has a very nice effect. I like the, well, when I previewed this, I didn't notice that. So I don't know if it's a difference between the software or what, but what I remember is the lower portion, this kind of a triangle of light area, tall on the right-hand side, point on the left-hand side. It looked whiter to me, and I think I preferred it with the white. I know you're kind of looking through it, and so there's a green background, so it gives it a green tint, but I think whiter would be better. And I do like that white triangle. But otherwise, I think that you should consider bringing the horizon and everything above it down lower in the frame. And you could just crop off some, like about half of the bottom. Or if you want to be really fancy, since I said I kind of like that white triangle, you could clone some of that up into the upper portion of the hillside before you crop out, so you don't lose that. But I like it, but I just think that it would be even more impressive with less of the bottom. Thank you.
Focus, a matter of choice.
Yeah, it's a great concept. It really talks about focus in a conceptual way and communicates that quite well. And I think it works everywhere except where the lower blue circle overlaps the plant. I think that dark blue outline just draws too much attention to itself and is so different from the soft edges of all of the other colored spots. The green one on that same stem has the same effect, but it's not as contrasty, so it doesn't stick out as much. And so you can probably get away with that one quite easily. Also, it seems like some of the blue is like coming through the plant in a way that I don't think seems quite natural. So you might want to think about getting rid of those kind of little blue spots there. Okay, thank you.
Creative, masters 6 images. Fall vineyard.
So one of the things I appreciate about this is that you have used different techniques to create the abstract painterly look in different parts of the image, and using one techniques that are appropriate for the subject matter that you're dealing with. So the way the sky is abstract is appropriate for the sky. The way the green trees in the background are abstract is appropriate for those trees. And the way the leaves on the vine have been abstracted are appropriate for those. You've put the most abstraction into those vines, which is appropriate since your topic is the fall vineyard. You've made them very bold colors, which again speaks about autumn. So it's very delightful in that way. Overall, I think it gives a very pleasing abstract representation. Thank you.
And evolution of string.
Yeah, I think the abstraction by the use of these squiggly lines brings a lot of energy into this image, but I feel that energy is a little bit at odds with the pose of the subject, who seems to be in a more contemplative, relaxed position, which somehow isn't what I'd expect from all these wiggly lines. I guess the title is supposed to tie these together, and certainly to a certain extent they do. But it's quite a leap in terms of evolution from the wild strings on the ground to the human being there. So that may be just too large a conceptual jump. So you may think about different ways of using this technique, maybe a little bit different subject. I think it's, it's worth exploring more. Thank you.
Ginger ale, anyone?
Yeah, this is very good technically. I love the way the light is captured on the ginger ale can, the glass and the bubbles. Good contrast, good sharpness. It works very well. And it's a welcome relief from the photos we get of fruit falling into the water. So I like that as well. The only thing I would maybe consider suggesting is, bubbles break the surface of the water. And so you might consider showing those bubbles breaking the surface a little bit rather than having kind of that sharp cutoff at the top of the glass. Thank you.
Sugar and strawberries. Good.
Absolutely. Looks delicious. Excellent still life. You've got good lighting on this, which really kind of molds the shape of all the subjects that are in here. I think one of the critical things is that you do have those strawberries that are outside the bowl. If you look at all the really good still lifes of any subject, you'll always see something that is not quite perfect about them. I guess in Japanese, that's called wabi-sabi, the perfectly imperfect. And that's what you have here. The falling sugar is a very nice touch. I guess what is it that makes, what is that falling sugar enough to transform this image from kind of a traditional still life into something that's new and creative and different? Certainly, I think that argument can be made. Okay, thanks.
Lunar dreams.
Yeah, so I think a key to the success of this image is getting that contrast between the moon and the sky just right. So it has that mysterious appearance. It clearly stands out from the background, but it doesn't jump out of the background. You have a little bit of wonder about that. And then finally, to put the shadows of the birds on the moon in that negative space below the neck of the goose, and have those shadows, each one has the wings in a different position. I think that works quite nicely. The goose has very sharp, it's very realistic. It's a big contrast between the realism of the goose and the kind of little bit more abstract character of the rest of the image. I like that, and I like that the fact that the goose is not centered and entirely contained within the moon. A little bit of the feathers stick out. That somehow lends a little bit more realism and dynamic nature to the photograph. Thank you.
Magnolia.
Yeah, certainly a clever title and one that goes quite well with what we're seeing in the picture. So that definitely helps. It's a very interesting explosion of color. And it's so interesting that there's very, very tiny detail in the upper center part. And then as we move to the lower part and expand out, those features get longer and longer and longer and reach their extreme at the bottom of the picture. I think that's a nice way of expressing motion and emotion in this. In fact, I think that, the bilateral symmetry that you've imposed onto this picture makes this abstract make me feel like it's almost a human there, with the head and the body and the arms outstretched or wings outstretched, which, you know, gives you several ways of interpreting this and allows your brain to kind of flip back and forth between what it's seeing, which makes it very interesting. Thank you.
Journalism, basic, one image. A Sausalito resident paddles a kayak in the parking lot. Extreme tides or king tides have become more frequent in the Bay Area and are thought to result from climate change-driven rises in sea level.
Yeah, so for journalism, as for nature, the titles and the way they interact with the photograph itself are very important, more important than in the in pictorial division. So we'll pay a little bit more attention to those here. I think the photo definitely captures a newsworthy event. The visibility of the double yellow line through the water and the no parking sign definitely tells you that this is not normally underwater and it's probably normally a street. Now, it does make me wonder if this is actually a parking lot, the way the title says. We do want accuracy in these photographs, but I'll take the photographer's word for it. In journalism, we like the titles to cover the who, what, when, where, and why, and you've covered most of those, in almost all of them, in the title. It would be nice to know the date, because this is a transient event. So when it happened is also important. Now, if you're actually working for a newspaper or a news organization, your editor would probably be asking for the name of this person. But I know in the amateur photography world, we seldom go to the effort to get that. You probably were all a little bit embarrassed to try to go up to guys like this and get their name. So that's the way it is. Okay, thanks.
Journalism, intermediate, 5 images. Each May, villagers in Sheringham, Norfolk, celebrate victory for England, VE Day, May 8, 1945, by dressing in character of the day.
I think the composition and depth of field is very effective at communicating how these people celebrate. We have the person in the traditional bobby outfit in the front dominating the picture, then sort of the guy with the cigarette and the pinup tie next, and the aviators going a little bit out of focus in the distance, but still recognizable. And then everything else is out of focus to not distract away from the main characters, but is sharp enough so we get a real sense of the town and the other people in the town. Every reference I can find lists this as Victory in Europe Day, not Victory for England Day. So and I did even check out the village's website to see if they give it a different name, and maybe they do. But you do want to get those things right in your captions. And then the other thing is, what are those two people holding in their hands? It makes me wonder if something else is going on that maybe you didn't want to talk about. Okay, thanks.
The Forest Hill Bridge, one of 2, spans the North Fork of the American River. At 730 feet above the river, it's the highest bridge in California. The Forest Hill Bridge, again, 2 of 2, plans had called for a dam to be built downstream, and the resulting lake was to rise up just under the bridge. The dam site was deemed unstable, and the dam never built.
Yeah, I think the first image is quite lovely and definitely documents the situation. And the title is very well related to what we see in the picture. So we have both a visual and a kind of verbal explanation of important news about it's not necessarily news, but it's documenting some interesting feature of this part of the American river, which I think that is very well. When we go to the second image, I mean, this is a super dramatic image. I can definitely see why you want to include it. Doesn't add a lot to the story, though. And the title or the caption has lots of information in it, but none of that is anything that we can see in the picture. And ideally, we would like to be able to see in the picture what we're talking about in the caption. So it's not, if I think of this as from the perspective of the economy that a news editor might be looking for, I would say, well, pick one of these two images, which one tells a story best, but I'm not going to put space into both of them, no matter how much I may like it from a pictorial point of view. Okay, next, please.
Tunnel tops, one of 4. Presidio Tunnel Tops, the nation's newest national park space, opened in July 2022. It is built over the top of 2 tunnels and 6 lanes of traffic that replaced Doyle Drive. It offers expansive views of San Francisco Bay and the Golden Gate Bridge. The park, free and accessible to all, is very popular with families. Children and parents love the new playground. On first Sundays, family-friendly entertainment like these 2 taco drummers is offered against a beautiful backdrop. Takeout
Thank you.
Sorry.
So this is a good photo essay. It covers different aspects of the Tunnel Tops Park. The first image gives you kind of an overview of the park, and then each subsequent one covers specific aspects of the park. And there's the captions definitely complement what we see in the photos. Okay, thank you.
Comes to town, one of 3. Santa and Mrs. Claus arrive in Petaluma each year on a barge. Street performers and vendors add to the festive mood while everyone awaits Santa's arrival. Finally, Santa and Mrs. Claus are here, and it's worth the wait.
So it's good storytelling. I think the last image is a particularly strong image. It makes a good ending to the sequence, and it also could stand alone quite effectively. In real life, probably the first image happened before the second image, but you might, for the purposes of your storytelling, switch the 2. So you have the street vendors doing their thing while everyone's waiting, and then finally Santa starts to arrive on the barge, and then finally he is really here and we can sit down with him. I go back and forth about that, but it's something to be considered anyway. Thank you.
Ambient temperatures within the Tubbs wildfire front reached temperatures hot enough to melt thick glass street lamps. Melted windows, allowing fire entry, likely destroyed many well-built homes.
Yeah, so I think this is a very strong image, and it's a great example of using detail to communicate a larger story. Very difficult to capture the whole Tubbs fire and all of the things that's associated with it. So picking out one little thing to have it stand for the entire fire and is a very effective storytelling technique. And certainly the title helps us understand this image, which we might not be able to do without the title. Okay, thanks.
Journalism advanced. 4 images. Lonesome George was the last Pinta giant tortoise. He died in 2012 and the species is now extinct.
it's a very good documentary shot. I kind of would like to know a little bit more about this species, like where is it located before it went extinct. I think that would be a little bit helpful. I have a question about the color. Is that an accurate representation or of what is in this museum? Or is it somehow a color balance issue with incandescent lights or something, making it more yellow? I don't know. I worry about that. I would like to know where this museum is as well. I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
Great, 2022. One of two. Workers prepare Sophie's lemonade booth before the parade. She's all dressed up for the parade.
Excuse me. Yeah, I think I like this way of using a sequence. It's a little bit different than most sequences. So you know, I would start off looking at this. Oh, this is kind of weird. You got a picture of a person that their head is hidden under the thing. Why are you doing that? But on the other hand, it's providing this a whole overview of the lemonade stand and what's being done to prepare it. And then we go to the next one and kind of, surprise, there she is. So the first image kind of set us up for that surprise, and it's a beautiful portrait of the person, and she's got her packing tape there, and she's obviously been busy working, but now she's kind of hamming it up for the camera a little bit. Thank you.
Penobscot Narrows Bridge, one of three. One of only 4 observatory bridges in the world and the only one in the US. The Penobscot Narrows Observatory at 447 feet is the tallest. Penobscot this is 2 of 3. The bridge was modeled after the Washington Monument and is clad in the same main granite quarried in the Penobscot Bay Area. A fast elevator at 500 feet per minute transports visitors to an observatory with a spectacular 360-degree view of the surrounding countryside and the bridge itself.
Yeah, again, I believe that this is a good use of the sequence. The first image really sets us up, gives us the overview of the bridge. And the title is telling us what we're seeing. We then move on to the second image, and next image. Sorry. And now we see a much more dramatic view of the bridge, the close up of one of the piers, and which has the observatory on it, and it has and it has a unique shape. It's modeled after the Washington Monument. We see that in the picture. We read that in the title. And then we go on to the next image where we've now traveled up to the observatory and we're seeing a great overview of the area and the bridge. So I think that works very nicely as the storytelling sequence. Thank you.
Fossil fuel-free landscapers in India's capital city, 1969, New Delhi, India.
Yeah, it's kind of a typical Delhi scene where often in a single glance, you can see everything from the most primitive to the most advanced technology. You could make it a little bit more newsy, to coin a term, by making somehow a connection between the landscapers, the fact that they're fossil fuel free, and development in Delhi or climate change or something. Otherwise, it maybe is just, it's a clever title, but looking for a little bit bigger connection. And And that's not all bad. I mean, it kind of, the cute title kind of slides it away from being news oriented to more being a kind of a human interest story. It's a little bit technically weak. The people aren't sharp. It perhaps it looks a little bit overexposed. So it needs a little bit of work. Okay, thanks.
Journalism masters, 4 images. Win, 1 of 3. Argentina had not won the World Cup in 30 years. As the elimination game continues, hysteria builds exponentially. When the team won, the little town of El Caliphate, population of 6,000 to 7,000, hit the streets instantly. Subsequently, a national holiday was declared. It was reported that 7 to 9 million came into Buenos Aires to see the team's parade.
Yeah, for me, the second image is the strongest, and I think it's really strong. It does show the excitement, and I really think it could tell the story standing alone. The third photo switches, I assume, from this local village to Buenos Aires, and so it does add a bit to the story. But with the exception of a little bit of flag waving in the upper left and an isolated flag waving in the upper right, it doesn't really show the excitement such as like the second image does. We just more or less see a crowd kind of standing around. The first image I also do not think contributes much to this to this 3-image journalism story. If you were making a much larger portfolio, you might have several pictures similar to this one to create kind of the background story about Argentine football, and then you would move into the more dramatic photographs of the people's reaction to the win. But when you only have 3 images to show, this one doesn't really add a lot to it. Okay, thanks.
The icing can be a 2-step process. 1, orange colored spray fluid to remove the ice, and 1 green one to prevent further buildup.
Well, I think it's the strong perspective looking up at almost through the de-icing spray that makes this image strong and really helps tell the story. We might not understand it if it weren't for the caption, so the caption and the photograph work well together. Okay, thanks. Next.
Sturgeon's Mill Demonstration Day. The block setter guides the wood block into the sawmill as mill owner Bob Sturgeon provides commentary.
I think there's super good capture of the spinning saw blade. I think that just makes this picture so dramatic. There's lots of interesting detail everywhere, from the saw blades to the levers to the hat on the block setter to the people working in the distance. You can just spend a lot of time, and to the rafters too. I mean, just spend a lot of time looking at this picture. And it tells a clear story about a particular time and place in the history of this area. I tried to think of some way you might be able to show the block setter's face, and I realized it's probably impossible to do without losing a lot of the rest of the drama. So that's okay. This is showing the back of a person in a setting like this is a perfectly more than valid approach to telling a story like this. So thanks.
Religious pilgrims in Lalibela, Ethiopia, camp in the streets, cooking traditional injera over a fire.
Yeah, I think this has a great composition. I mean, we kind of have a little primary triangle formed by the shape from a line from the top of the front woman's head to her feet, and then from the top of her head and from her feet over to the injera that's being cooked. So that keeps our primary attention in the main action and the main story you're telling about cooking in the street. But then there's kind of this curve of action of people in the background that are not quite as sharp, but definitely very clear, maybe obscured a little bit by smoke, which again is telling the story about people camping in the street and giving a good impression of, you know, who these people are, what they look like, what they have to go through. And the blur of the hand of the woman, I think that adds a little bit of life to it. And so that works. And I think monochrome is also a good choice to kind of communicate the feeling of this time and place. Thank you.
Okay, we'll take a break. On that note,
Pictorial, basic 7 images. The Grand Canyon.
Yeah, I think that gold triangular mesa in the center, lower center, provides an entry into the image and is interesting in its own right. And the river kind of picks up from the peak of that and brings you the rest of the way through the image. You have nice contrast of that gold with the reds and browns on the canyon walls. And then as an extra treat in the background, there's these nice clouds and a rainstorm going on. I had considered thinking about cropping down a little bit from the top, but I don't think that would be a good thing. I think that this is a photo that that wants to let your eyes wander around and just like if you were there and observe all the interesting things that you can find. Okay, next.
New London, Svalbard, 2022.
Yeah, you have a nice collection of rocks in the foreground, and you have a very good depth of field, keeping everything in focus from the foreground to the far background. There's kind of a subtle leading line formed by a crack that leads you from those rocks to the ocean, and that brings you to this floating ice. And then from the floating ice, you go to the little island, I guess it is, and then from the island to the cliffs on the far shore. And certainly that is quite interesting. That leading line is a kind of subtle, and I keep wanting to jump over to that sill of like quartz or gypsum or something, the white sill that's running halfway up the left-hand wall of this little indentation here. And that's a little bit of a problem, and there's not a lot in that central reddish area that to really hold your interest. And you might be able to, play around with this, sort of pretend that you have control over the sun and the shadows, and darken some areas and lighten some other areas to maybe accentuate that area in the center to keep your eye in there and see some interest, and prevent that kind of jumping over to that white line. And then is just a small nit. There's in the lower 1/3, right, sticking in from the right hand border, this little like parallelogram. It's a minor thing, but it just looks a little out of place to me. I would consider either darkening it or cloning it out altogether. Okay, next.
Bald Eagle, 19183089.
Well, it's a very dramatic bird. It's nice and sharp. I can see all the detail in the feathers. It's well placed with relative to the rest of the scenery. You might consider, though, cropping in from the left. There's kind of some interesting stuff there, but not that great. And you'd have to find like where you think the perfect location is based on where the edge of the frame is going to intersect the trees and the hills. There might be a particularly preferably spot. I think that brings a little bit more attention to the bird and the beautiful scenery you have on the right-hand side, and tends to give, I think, a little bit more forward motion to the eagle itself. Okay, thank you.
Noloden, Svalbard, 2022.
Yeah, good sense of depth with many, many layers here of all the different rocks and the spit of land, and then some more water, and then some foreground hills, a glacier, more mountains, and then the clouds. So really a lot of depth to bring you through here. Good depth of focus. Everything is in focus here. You kind of established a diagonal here with your where you've chosen to stand and your position and where the rocks are. So you have the rock in the lower left-hand corner in the foreground, and then you kind of have a triangle going along the top side of the rocks and the lower side of the rocks that then include that first set of mountains in the background. Ends up creating quite a strong diagonal, which gives, some energy to the picture, some strength. So I think that helps a lot. Thanks.
Svalbard Glacier, 2022.
Well, you're essentially using the two cliff sides in the foreground to form a frame for the peak in the background. I think that works quite nicely. And the glacier itself is kind of a leading line that brings you up to that peak, pointed peak, and around it. I love the tonal quality. You've got mostly midtones. There are some pure blacks, but not a lot. But I think focusing on those midtones does give a certain feel to this image that is quite interesting and pleasant. It's hard to tell when you're viewing things on the screen as opposed to a print. I never quite know whether, even though I try to calibrate my monitor before doing these things, I find that even different programs display the images differently. But it does appear to me that some of the snow areas are blocked out, so there's no detail. They're just pure white. Particularly that relatively large area just in front of the central peak. It's a pretty big area with no detail in it. And it would be nice to have just a touch of detail, just a touch of detail there. Thank you.
Nesting great blue herons.
Well, they're making this beautiful dance for you to photograph, and that dance is creating this lovely composition of S curves and interacting curves, which I think is a very nice composition. Good timing. You've kind of captured a decisive moment here where everything is just arranged just so. It's fine like it is, but I wonder if you've experimented a little bit with cropping in from both left and right and making investigating a square format and see what you think about that. Okay, thanks.
Goals, number 3.
Yeah, you have a very dramatic picture here with the gulls practically flying right at you. You go, whoa, this is maybe a little bit scary, but there's a nice arrangement of the different gulls there. I like that. And of course, you have this big breaking wave in the background, which is definitely very, very dramatic. I'm not sure the horizon is perfectly straight. You might want to level that out. I don't know if you had to blow up a small frame, but it does look like you perhaps have exceeded the technical capabilities of your imaging system here. So I assume that you didn't kind of blur them on purpose, but we're definitely kind of losing resolution here. Maybe it's not fast enough shutter speed. That's another option, another reason it might be. Anyway, thank you.
Pictorial intermediate 9 images. Frosted morning, Kin Carroll Valley, Colorado.
Well, I definitely, one of the very strong parts of this image is the frost on the branches. I mean, have this glowing white on all these trees and on the grass in the lower right, I think is really dramatic and kind of, and makes this picture, especially on the left-hand side where you have the dark rocks in the background, as well as the dark tree trunks to provide contrast. You have a sense of depth here where as things go to the background, they kind of get a little bit blurred by the haze and get turned a little bit blue. You know, I didn't think of it earlier, but another version of this picture that you might want to consider is to crop down from the top to just above the white trees in the foreground, and just bring the focus totally on those trees. I don't know exactly where the best position of the frame is. Maybe it's a little bit above that second set of orange rocks, but because those trees are just so dramatic. Again, it looks like you have an area where of the snow in the upper right-hand corner where there's no detail. And you got other areas where there's no detail in the snow, but I think this is the one that maybe you want to pay the most attention to, because you got this nice blue areas of the hills in the distance, and then all of a sudden where the sun hits it, it's just this super white bright. And you could even just tone that down and maybe even add a little bit of the blue tint in there to make it merge a little bit more into the background hills. And again, your eyes won't go there. You still appreciate those hills, but you get stronger, intense view of those nice frosty trees. Okay, thanks.
Singing a song.
Yeah, these red-winged blackbirds are very territorial, so they'll stake out one of these cattail branches and just sing and sing and sing. It's really quite nice. Your way of putting things out of focus has created just a wonderfully lovely background here, which the nice sharp bird can stand out. And you've done a great job on the exposure. I can see a lot of detail in this very black feathers, which is a difficult thing to do. It's easy to get that underexposed. I wondered if, it gives a very different emotional feel if the negative space is behind the bird or in front of the bird. And I just want to make sure that you gave that some thought and decided, yeah, I like the emotional feel of having less space in front of the bird and more space behind it. It kind of, it's one of these things that goes against the rule, unquote, quote unquote. But really, it's not a matter of rules. It's a matter of what communicates the emotional feel that you wanted to have. So just make sure you're thinking about that. you might consider, if you want to get in there and do some work, is get rid of that little twig that is almost touching the tail feathers of the blackbird, to get it either gone completely or more part of the background. Thank you.
My best friend.
Well, this is a very classic portrait. Good kind of more or less uniform illumination, a little bit more from the left side, but it's bringing out the texture of the fur and the shape of the animal really well. And everything's sharp and clear. It's like this classic with the classic portrait background. But then there's the tongue, which just makes it unique and different from other pictures, and contrast in both color and in shape. And you know, someone might have said, "Oh darn, I have to take this picture again," but you were smart enough to say, no, this is the one that's unique and special, so I'm going to show it. Thank you.
Bella.
Really good control of the lighting, and particularly the ratio from the left to the right. Now, the left-hand side is pretty bright. It's working great on the flowers. It works on the face because the face is in this mask. And so if it's a little bit brighter than you might want, if it were, you know, her natural skin tone, it doesn't matter because it's appropriate for the mask. But then on her left, our right side of the face, you have this beautiful light that's just gentle, and it's very much highlighting the shape of her cheeks and the area around her mouth. Quite beautiful. Her eyes are nice and sharp, which is probably the most important thing when you're taking a portrait. A lot of the rest can be out of focus as long as those eyes are sharp. And against I think it works with the black background, particularly because of the those brightly colored, highly saturated flowers, and the rest of her headwear stands out strongly against that black background. Okay, thanks.
Jen takes the plunge.
Well, this is one of the peak of action shots, right? You've captured just as she's jumping off of the boat. It's got quite a bit of blur into it, but it's all motion blur, which is communicating that message of her taking the plunge. So that's very nice. And there's a little bit of a haiku-ish character to this picture, because clearly the main subject is her jumping, and it's a little bit blurry because it's motion, and that's what the title says. But then if we follow her, the angle of her head, we hit this very elegant sailboat that's like perfectly in sharp, and everything's just like perfect in it. It's almost the diametric opposite of the photograph of Jen herself, and having that kind of thing. You can almost imagine writing a 2-line haiku where the boat is the one last line surprise to this picture. So I think that's really cool. I think the right-hand corner is kind of bright, a little bit taking away from her. I would certainly crop in, at least to get rid of that yellow triangle in the lower right-hand portion, but you could probably crop in even further. How far you go is kind of up to you, but I would also darken that area. There's a really bright rope there, but just overall, it's very, very, very bright. And I think you might want to just darken that down, keeping some contrast in it. You always run the risk of just making it sort of bleh, you know, but when you darken things, so you want to keep the contrast there. But I think that might help bring attention. If you haven't thought about it, think about making this in black and white. Sometimes when there's motion blur and things like that, it works better in black and white than in color. It working pretty good in color though, so it's just something to play around with. Okay, thanks.
Coming down from Old Bald Mountain.
Well, it's a really interesting color scheme. And when we usually see these kind of pictures, they usually have the bluish tinge to them. So having this yellow tinge, I don't know whether it's kind of, you're trying to say dawn or sunset, just before sunset. It's a different interpretation of the scene. But you do have that nice sense of depth where you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I count different hills that you've captured, each one successively lighter than the one before. And you even have a little bit of a sense of maybe some clouds in the valley because the ridge line is a little bit darker than the area before. So that's working, I think, working pretty well. The other thing I would say is, this, I really don't feel like I want to crop this in any way, but I do feel like I would like it to be a panorama. So I don't know what's to the right and what's to the left of this, but if you saw a scene like this sometime in the future, you might take several different pictures pointing in different directions and then like stitch them together and make a big panorama out of it. Or you might experiment with cropping down from the top and up from the bottom, but and see what you think about that. Okay, thanks.
Drought Year Waterfall, North Fork of the Kings River, 2022.
Yeah, I think you have effective choice of shutter speed here, and shutter speed is really the critical thing when you're taking pictures of flowing water like this. You can make it very soft and gentle and lacy, or you can make it explosive with crystal water flowing everywhere, or anything in between. And it's up to you depending on what you want to communicate. But I think this is a nice job. You've also done a very good job of exposure on this, on the flowing water. There's lots of detail everywhere, very few places that are like burnt out, which is, a pretty difficult thing sometimes to achieve. So I think you've done a good job there. And you have a strong diagonal in the flow of the water, which always helps. The kind of lower part, particularly lower left, we start to get it a little bit soft. It's not quite a sharp focus. It's not so bad to be objectionable, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. But you might consider darkening the top of that rock just a little bit to keep our attention over on the waterfall. Thank you.
Crooked Harmony.
Yeah, very interesting visual interactions between the diagonals of that fence and the verticals of the tree. There's almost a little bit of an optical illusion because I keep wanting for the trees to alternate which side of the fence they're on. And of course they don't. They're all on the right side of the fence. But that keeps me looking at this picture. So I think that works quite well, but because it does pull you in. The other thing I find really interesting and enjoyable about this picture is the leaves on the ground. It makes it look almost like a pointillist painting. Now, in contrast with, the trees in the fence itself, pretty realistic photograph, but you do get that pointillist impressionism from the ground, which I think is quite lovely. Thanks.
A classic English climbing rose.
Well, that rose is definitely beautiful. And the soft colors, pastel, I think works quite nicely. I think you have a really tricky situation here when it comes to depth of field, because I feel like I would like a little bit more sharpness on the main subject rose, but I kind of think I would like the rose in the upper left-hand corner maybe to be a little bit more out of focus. And I would like that upper left rose and the way out of focus rose down below maybe to be a little bit darker. You might consider this. I think I would like, if you're going to have that much negative space on the right, to maybe have a little bit more negative space below as well. Yeah, thanks.
Pictorial advanced 11 images. Sunrise over the Sossusvlei Dunes, Namibia.
Well, you definitely have great light in this picture. It's giving lots of texture and interest to the photograph. You have beautiful color. Excuse me a minute. You kind of have this interesting thing also going on where you have the main dune, which is this like nice triangle there, and then the mountains tend to tail off, but then kind of the clouds fill in above it. So you almost have this little diagonal line going from the top of the dune up to through the trees, up to the clouds, and maybe even forming a secondary triangle with the mountains down below. A good friend of mine was Richard Misrock's assistant, and his job was to go and take out all the dust spots in Misrock's photographs. It was quite a time-consuming, kind of boring job for someone who had a Master of Fine Arts in photography, but it's kind of the price you pay for getting into photography. Now, in this picture, there is quite a multitude of dust spots on your sensor, all over the sky. And, for someone in the advanced level, going through and retouching those should be a mandatory part of your workflow. And with the tools we have today, the cloning brush, it really makes that quite easy. You would certainly have a lot easier time with it than my friend who was Misrock's assistant. Okay, next.
Princess Irene.
Yeah, lovely color and nice detail in the main subject. I like the contrast and the complementary colors of the orange of the flower and the more bluish green of the leaves that surround it, and the more neutral background. I think that's quite nice. You're kind of employing the rule of three here, where you have the main subject and then two other bulbs, not really rigorously using it, but it kind of is that giving that little bit of energy from not being an even number. And you've done a good job with vignetting, where the focus of light is definitely on the bulbs, and everything else is kind of fading into being a little bit darker as we move to the edges. Okay, thank you.
Trapped.
Well, this is a really interesting conceptual photograph. I have this feeling like I'm seeing a person inside of a Ziploc bag behind a screen. So it's definitely giving me the feeling of trapped. There's a trade-off between like too obvious and too obscure. And I'm not sure exactly where I am on that scale, but perhaps that's the point of this photograph. Okay, next.
Seattle from Lake Washington.
Again, beautiful example of using contrasting colors. We have our complementary colors. We have the orange in the sky and the blue in the water, and they're particularly interesting shades, more of a maybe, what is that? Indigo in the water, kind of nice there. I'm curious if you've thought about doing a very long exposure of the water. So you have kind of a dreamy view down there. You might have to make it a composite with a short shutter speed to capture the sky and the longer shutter speed capturing the water, or maybe a long shutter speed would work for both too. But and you have the skyline of the city, which is kind of in this intermediate where it's not quite super black, but it's not light either, and its color isn't quite the blue of the water, but it's certainly not the orange of the sky. So it's kind of this interesting transition zone. There's a couple bright lights in the darkest part of the land on the other side, which I assume is some kind of structure there. But you might consider, they naturally they belong there, but you might consider just getting rid of those. You could leave the sort of light blue area there, but the bright specks, if they were gone, it might make a difference in how you emotionally feel about that area. Okay, thank you.
Reflections at my laundry.
Well, this is a cleverly seen thing, which I guess we're seeing both a wall and a reflection. So the two are superimposed on each other, creating kind of this interesting abstract effect. What I particularly find interesting is that some of the reflection kind of matches up with the texture of the wall behind whatever is causing the reflection. So it almost looks like it's wrapping around the frame of the picture of whatever that is. Particularly, I think, evident whatever that circular thing is in the very center. The hillside seems to hit the side and then bend and come forward and then go horizontal again, which is a really good, interesting sense of ambiguity, because it doesn't work. It doesn't do that everywhere. So it's just maybe a coincidence, but it's kind of interesting. Wondering about that vertical line close to the left border. Kind of maybe makes it a little bit different than if you just cut that off. I was actually wondering what more is over there, and if you want to include more of what's on the other side of that line. So it seems like it makes sure it's not perceived as an accident. Okay, thanks.
Birds of a feather.
I think this is a very good use of the panoramic aspect ratio. We have these beautiful birds in all sorts of flight. And the fact that they're a little bit soft is fine, because it's kind of like almost a little bit of an abstract, like it just kind of gives a more soft emotional appeal to it. I like that. Then we have those pillars of dark below, and like, what is causing those? I mean, there must be the shadows of something, but they're more like just maybe an abstract of fingers pointing up at the birds. And I like that kind of mystery. I think it adds a lot of interest here. You might consider if you go to just a little way in from the left-hand side in the group of birds, you get to the point where there's two real blurry things. And I suspect maybe those are, reflections in the water or something. But they a little bit distract, in my opinion, they a little bit distract from the kind of the overall mysterious thing of this thing. You might consider just getting rid of those. So getting rid of anything that doesn't look like birds in flight in the top, and getting rid of anything that doesn't look like mysterious dark patterns poking up from the bottom. And so we're never tempted to really say, I understand this picture. Okay, thanks.
Grace and balance.
Well, you have a lot of strong implied movement in this, which I think is a very a strong point of this image. You have part of the stamen or pistils or something that's like looks like it's being thrown out to the right. And meanwhile, you have the flower petals on the left that more look like maybe a dancer's skirt being swirled as the dancer swirls around. And nothing is and it's all done with this lacy veins of the petals of the flower, which I think is good. And here, using the title Grace and Balance does help us, I think, appreciate and understand this image better. Thank you.
Yellowstone sunset.
Super dramatic. This is all about drama. We have particularly interesting is the sunlit setting sun illuminating the steam coming up, and you have that like orange vapors that are contrasted against the dark background of trees and hills. And then as you come even more forward, we see the hot springs and the reflection of the sunlight giving an orange glow to that water as well. Many planes in terms of depth. I think that works quite well. You have this like vertical alignment that you've established between the sun, the rays of the sun shooting up, the steam illuminated by the sun, and then the sun reflected off of the water. Thank you.
Herring gulls on the Maine coast in autumn.
I think you have a very effective depth of field here. We have the background just a little bit soft, but easily recognized. It really feels like the Maine coast. That house looks like a house I might expect to find on the Maine coast. The gulls are nice and sharp, really looking well, flying around. Nice fall colors, but the gulls really do stand out quite well against the background. I wonder if we need quite as much area on the right-hand side. You might consider cropping in to maybe just past that rock there, unless you really like that rock, or even a little bit further. I think this is a case where we do want some space over there to let the gulls move into, but we maybe don't need quite as much as you have. Okay, next.
Let me speak.
Very clever pun title, sets up for experiencing this photo. There's a lot of drama here with those huge eyes, nice and sharp and looking out at you. And then the beak from this perspective looks like really strange. It's fine like it is. I mean, I would like a little greater depth of field to try to get the tip of the beak in focus. I'm sure that, this looks like a situation where getting enough depth of field is probably a real challenge. And certainly making sure the eyes were sharp is the right choice. We can tolerate a little bit of lack of sharpness on the tip of that beak. Thank you.
Still life with kale.
Yeah, I think that it's a classic still life. I think you have a consistent color palette through this whole image, which really ties it together. It's kind of a little bit on the pastel side, maybe, but in any event, it's consistent. It's a choice. You don't have super saturated colors jumping out. You've chosen to make it a little bit softer and gentler and a little bit more romantic that way. You've got good lighting illuminating all the aspects of it. You could maybe use a little bit more light on the right-hand side of the vase. I'm just noticing for the first time, like I'm seeing some bird or something reflected or inside the vase. In the lower right-hand part of that vase, I see two eyes there. That's interesting. I'm not in the tradition of Vanitas, putting something a little bit mysterious like a skull in a still life is fitting right in with that tradition of still life. And in that same vein, I see the little gold, I don't know, ornament are there. That's kind of an interesting addition. Doesn't appear to be organic like almost everything else. Again, in traditional Vanitas, you'd probably have, a fallen leaf or maybe even a bug or something bug there. And so what does this gold ornament, what kind of emotion does that feed? Maybe a little bit more space above the flowers in the vase, I think might be helpful. Okay, thanks.
Pictorial Masters 13 images. The calm before the storm.
Yeah, the title again helps set us up because it's not, like clearings, the classic Ansel Adams photograph of clearing storm. It's pretty obvious that the storm is there and it's clearing. Not quite so obvious in this picture. So the title kinds of cues our imagination about what to look for. The cliffs, the grass, and the boulders are somewhat interesting, but not very interesting, in my opinion. But kind of that is what makes it give its calm feeling. If it was super dramatic, then it wouldn't have the calmness. The sky, to my eye anyway, has a purple tinge. Maybe that adds a sense of impending storm as opposed to for a more neutral color. I certainly, that's a question in my mind, but I certainly think that the fact that there's a cool tint to the distant peak of rock, in addition to its being giving the impression of being a little bit soft because maybe we're looking through some kind of haze. Having that, in addition to that haze, having it a little bit on the cooler side definitely helps me think that a storm is coming. Thank you.
Quiet of winter, but the caw of crows.
Well, on the surface, this feels definitely very much like the dead of winter, and everything is quiet because the leaves have fallen and there's not much living. But on the second look, there's kind of this flow of the rows of vines that are just leading us into the picture. We hit the trunk of the tree, we shoot up, and then we explode out. And then we hit the crows. And so they're making the caw noise. So it was quiet, but it's not because we have the crows in there as well. And we have also a sense of that noise, or excuse me, both the sense of the quiet of winter and a little bit of noise from the way the photograph sets us up for a little bit of drama. Okay, next.
Ghost ship in the fog.
Well, this is definitely spooky. Very good use of monochrome. It has this weird feeling like the ship is being illuminated by the fog rather than hidden in a fog, illuminated by some other source, which really contributes to the feeling. And then having the ship mass kind of disappearing into the dark sky, so we can see some of it. We can't see others. It's like what we can't see is as important, or as what we're not seeing is as important as what we are seeing. Thank you.
Layers of time.
Definitely a good illustration of what geologists call deep time. The left side is clear. The right side is in the distance. That's a little bit a different perspective than we often see in these canyon shots, where we more have a equals left and right, just and a V going into the distance. It's nice to see different way of looking at these things. It is very awe-inspiring. What I like to kind of point out is that if you look at this, the top of all of the mesas are at the same level, which means that at some point in the past, a previous river eroded everything down to a plain. And then this huge force lifted things up. So a new river would cut this incredible canyon. So there's even deeper time beyond what you can see in this picture. And that's one of the things that's super awe-inspiring to me. And one of the things I say to people who tell me that, well, being a scientist, science takes all the awe out of life. And I say, no, you probably missed the whole fact that there was another eon before this, because you didn't recognize the meaning of all those things being level. It's amazing. Thanks.
This is a corn crib in Will County, Illinois. In the winter, there's not much that can slow down the wind and blown snow. Drifts can be 8 to 10 feet high.
Well, there's great texture in the wood and good use of the full tonal rail of a black and white photograph, from pure black to pure white. Good choice of shooting towards the edge of this. You've generated a couple different vanishing points that way, so that gives it a real 3D view. But what I really like is that you've captured the feeling of blowing snow with this area towards the bottom of the picture, where we're looking through blowing snow to see the bottom part of this building. Thanks.
Cornwall Portal.
Yeah, to my eye, this is almost a trompe l'oeil picture, because the left-hand side of the stone bridge and the top, I don't see any, it looks very one-dimensional. And that immediately gives me this feel that it's a window. It's not really a tunnel. And what's inside there is maybe a painting. And we have this optical illusion of the railroad going into there. And that's kind of a cool effect, I have to admit. I don't know if you intended that or not. And it's a lovely photograph, whether you think of it that way or not. But it's a little added punctum that you can get out of this picture. Thank you.
Solitary tumbleweed.
Well, the ripples in the sand form a wonderful pattern. I particularly am impressed by the fact that there's almost a center of rotation over in the halfway up the right-hand side, and the bottom half of the image, we have the ripples curving around that center and then lining up with with the lines that ripples that start off straight on the right-hand side and become diagonal on the left-hand side. I think that's really quite fascinating. And then you have the little tumbleweed all by itself up in the upper left with this long shadow coming out. Of course, the low light is what's really bringing out the texture of the sand and the ripples, and the tumbleweed is like glowing in the sun. There are a couple of naturally occurring bright spots caused by, a rock or a particularly perfectly aligned grain of sand, which are not a problem at all. But, if you wanted to, you could go in and clone all those out and get a almost perfect representation of the ripples in the sand with no disturbances to them. Thank you.
Samburu tribal women giving thanks for water in drought-stricken northern Kenya.
I think you have a good arrangement here with the three faces, one in the foreground, one a little bit in the background on the left, and then one in the lower and then the background on the right. I think that works quite nicely. I think the person on the right-hand side has the strongest image. You could almost have her by it herself. The one in the front is great, but because it's face on, the fact that her head is tilted back is not quite as dramatic as say the person in the right, and that's just an artifact of the fact that she's head on with the camera. And the other thing I really like about this picture is the trees in the background. I mean, you could have chosen to like blur the background out, have it totally out of focus, but it's perfectly sharp. And those are such interesting trees. Again, they're the little bit of like secondary interest after you've seen the primary subject here. And it also does contribute a lot to a sense of place. So it's contributing to the story that this photograph is telling. Okay, thank you.
The son's future is the father's past. Cuba.
This is one of the few pictures I've ever seen with reflections in the glasses that I felt that's a really important part of the story. If those reflections weren't there, I don't think it would be nearly as powerful, because it really kind of gives me the impression that the reflections in the man on the right are scenes of his past and the reflections on the left are scenes of his future. So it really goes along with the title here of what they're seeing and what it is. And, they're good portraits too. I mean, the lighting is this nice, sort of soft lighting that is not, making it overly dramatic, but is doing a fine job of modeling the features so we can see the shape of the face and the wrinkles without it being overbearing. So from that sense, they're very nice pictures, very nice portraits. But I think the reflections actually do, in this case, add something to it. Okay, thank you.
CrossFit workout.
Yeah, the light is very important to making this a successful image. We have a lot of light coming from the right and a little bit in the front, and then light from the left that's coming sideways. And what that is doing is essentially highlighting all of his muscles, all of the facial features. And there's enough light, so there's some detail in the part that's facing us, but it's also just outlining everything and giving that strong sense of concentration in the person's face. And the skin is like really standing out from both his outfit and from the background. And it's the muscles that we see straining in the skin that's really the subject of this photograph. So I think that that's working quite well. There's this little loop of something rope coming in from the top border. You might consider either darkening that or just cloning it out. Okay, thank you.
Floating fall leaves.
Yeah, this is, both realistic and abstract, because you have the main leaves in the foreground that are floating, being represented quite realistically. And then you have all the reflected patterns, which are forming just an abstract background, which is really interesting. It's great color, really enjoying those kind of saturated colors that they're all the fall colors. They're kind of adjacent to each other on the color scale, on the color wheel, but establish kind of a palette that you use that says fall. It has this interesting effect of being both chaotic yet calming, like there's a fluid motion there. Thank you.
Off-road racing, up close.
Certainly the perspective and the framing that communicates a sense of power and danger. There's no room anywhere in this picture that this thing doesn't exist. In particular, when we talk about having space for an object to move into, there obviously is no such space here, but that's what part of what creates the sense of excitement and danger, that this thing is, just going to burst through the frame on the left-hand side and keep on going. You might want to consider darkening kind of the lower right-hand part of this image. It's pretty bright relative to everything else. And I think maybe if you darken that, again, making sure that it doesn't go to some kind of blood gray, will help keep the energy up on the vehicle itself. Okay, next.
Grove in winter light.
Well, I really enjoy the light coming through the trees. It's very difficult to capture. It only works under certain conditions where we have enough haze in the air to reflect the light, but not so much that we can't see what's going on. I also really like the color palette that you've used on the upper center and upper left hand. This sort of faded green, I think does contribute a very certain emotion to the image. The transition from that faded green to the orange and red in the lower right-hand corner, that isn't working for me too well. I'm not quite sure what that's attempting to communicate. It doesn't seem to have the same emotion as the rest of the image. So I really question that. The silver of the ferns that are right at the base of the central tree, I think that fits in quite nicely. I like that a lot. Okay, next.
Critique feedback, 3 images. Stretch. I run past the beached Verna, Salmon Creek Beach, Sonoma County, 2016.
Yeah, I noticed that all of these pictures has the author's signature on it. I assume that they don't intend to enter these into a N4C competition, or if they do, they're going to remove that because, of course, we know that you can't have identifying marks on the front. I really like this concept. Until I read the title, I had no clue what was going on. And I delighted in that ambiguity. I didn't know whether these people were trying to escape from this boat or what. Now I know that they're in a running and they just happen to be going past this specifically very interesting boat that is run ashore. So that was quite nice. I think it's a good use of black and white. Here's some things I think you should think about. Whether you do anything with them or not is up to you, but I just give them to you as things to think about. So I really like the fact that there's kind of this geometric progression between the space of the walkers. So there's, a certain space between the furthest and the next to the furthest, then a bigger space to the second runner, and then even a bigger space to the first runner. Does it work to have the runner half in the frame and half out of the frame? Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I don't completely object to that, but it's something to consider. Particularly the only reason it might bother me is even though I like that geometric progression I just talked about, there's a lot of space between the second runner and the one that's going out of the frame. You could do some fancy compositing and move her closer. That would be one possibility. Or of course, you may like it just like it is. So then you can leave it alone. The next thing I do is I wonder about how much of the foreground is useful. And you might want to consider cropping up to somewhere just a little bit below the reflection of the second runner. I think there's enough stuff of the boat there to be interesting. We don't need, I don't think, to see a perfect representation of the boat in the reflection to appreciate this. Again, it's up to you. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer here. And the same way, do we need all of the space to the left of the boat? And if it might make sense if you're going to do one of those crops that you do both of them. They might work best as a complement to work together. Let's see. The other thing I would say is that the reflection is higher contrast than the original subject, particularly I'm talking about the reflection of the boat here. And that's a little bit unusual, and perhaps it's distracting. So you might consider lowering or darkening and lowering the contrast of the reflection, particularly the big white part of the boat. But again, these are all just things for you to think about and decide if they help or they don't. Okay, thanks. Next.
Just thinking.
Yeah, I think the photo captures the emotion that you've expressed in the title. The eye is sharp. There's kind of a little bit of a natural vignette here to the picture. I don't really have any suggestions for this one. Okay, next.
Thailand, a culture of mask wearing.
I think the woman shows a good gaze. I like the kind of raised eyebrows that she shows. Good theme. I like what you're talking about. Mask wearing is certainly very prevalent in Asian countries, long before we had the pandemic. I might, again, I don't know, prints can be different than projected. So I'm not seeing any detail in the hair above the her right eye. And I would like to see just a little bit of texture there. So it's not just a black blob. And again, on a different screen, or if it's a print, maybe that's fine. And it's just the way it looks like in this projected. I do find the the fact that the fingers of her left hand are in the pictures, a little bit distracting. I kind of wish they weren't there, or we were seeing maybe more of her hand, but okay, that's it for that.
Hey. We've covered all the images. We'll take another 5-minute break, and then Steve will come back with the winners.
Okey doke.
Bill,
Yes,
Steve's gonna read the winners, is that right?
yes.
Okay.
Thank
cool.
you. Good job.
Right.
Yep, Pat,
Great.
you read with expression.
Right. Yeah, really good.
Thank you.
Great job, Pat. Thank
Tally ho. And are you seeing Creative Basic one image?
We are indeed.
Okay, let me switch over. Oh, come on. There we go. Creative Basic, one image. First place, Cindy. And Cindy,
All right.
Right. Welcome to the club.
To get started.
and Cindy, just so you know, when you win, you can mention a few words about your inspiration, technique, or something you find striking about how it came to be.
There's not much really to say. I was waiting for a cable car in San Francisco on the corner of Market and California Street. And while in line, just playing around with buildings and seeing what I could do with them. And I actually kind of liked the image. And when I switched to black and white, I liked the optical type illusion on it.
Mhm.
Very nice.
Very nice.
Very nice.
Congratulations.
Well
Yes.
said.
Competition was really tough.
Yes, one image. Yes.
But he
Bingo.
doesn't have to give an award.
Right.
Nice image.
Makes me feel better.
Creative Intermediate, 3 images. Third place, Greg.
Nice.
That's cool.
They still here?
Maybe not.
iPhone.
No
Wow.
longer. Second place. Oh, congratulations to Greg. Second place, Mark.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this is out at Wichita in the morning, and a little bit of a surprise. It worked out, and it just heightened the color on it.
Very sweet.
Beautiful.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it's
Thank you.
Congratulations. First place, Sherry.
Oh, thank you very much. This is an image I thought about for a long time before I finally convinced my husband to go stand in the ocean.
Oh, that's awesome.
Nice.
Cold, did he have cold feet?
He had those waterproof socks that I don't know if you follow Nick Page on YouTube, but he recommends these waterproof socks. So he was comfortable.
A good sport.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
Congratulations. Creative Advanced, 4 images, honorable mention. Phil.
Oh, yeah. I took the picture of the sand and the net, the volleyball net or whatever you call it, in Santa Cruz. I was in a hotel room overlooking the beach, and there was nobody else there. And I took the picture knowing I wanted to do something like this. So found a mushroom picture and merged them all together with a little squirrel in there.
Oh, that's
This is squirrel.
Love the sand.
Really well.
I love
Yeah, and
the whole
I
idea.
do I know the resolution on the squirrel at this size probably wasn't that great, but I didn't want to make it larger because it would be disproportional to the whole court.
But that's
Understand.
yeah. That's
Great
awesome.
idea.
Oh my gosh.
Interesting.
Ah.
Congratulations. Third
Thanks.
place. Linda.
Oh,
Oh,
oh, this was out on the golf course here, and that was just a straight shot. It was foggy, and it just had finished raining, and it was weird. I didn't do anything. It just did that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Strange. Thank you.
Amazing.
Congratulations, that's very cool.
Very weird.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Second place. Linda again.
Oh, I convinced my husband to walk. This is a golf course too, and just use that slow shutter and twirled it sideways.
Wow.
It was him twice, so it's like,
Oh, nice.
Oh, nice.
he was
Nice.
guarding himself.
oh,
Good thing.
It's interesting because the clothing isn't the same color.
Yeah, did you do a color treatment?
No. I don't know what happened.
Cool.
It was a mistake.
father and son.
Congratulations.
Good fall. Thank you.
First place. Guy.
Oh,
That's
Oh.
gorgeous.
Yeah.
I can't see the Zoom while I'm doing this, so I take it Guy is not here?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. I didn't see him.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
really cool.
Nice.
Congratulations to Guy.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Creative Masters, 4 images, honorable mention. Anne.
Yay.
Looked
Just
like an
playing
ant.
around with different apps and stuff. Near my house, beautiful vineyards.
I
Wow.
love that squiggly spine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too.
Once again, using your iPhone, wasn't it?
I believe it was, Joel. Yes.
Yeah, good for you, Ann.
What
Beautiful.
app did you use?
I always use Snapseed. I really like that because you can just do a lot. And now you do a lot of basic changes with that. And then I have other apps too that I can use to give a painterly effect.
Mm.
And then after I apply it, usually I don't like certain parts, so I have to go back and change them. But
Really cool.
yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Nice.
Great.
Did it on her iPhone using some of the apps that they have. available.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Third place. Mike.
Pretty neat.
There's a lot of gimmicky stuff, huh?
He might be gone.
Went
Mike
to,
he's gone.
Past his bedtime.
yeah.
Congratulations to Mike. Second place. Liz.
Hmm.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
This was
That's
at the San Francisco Arboretum. And Magnolia time.
Great, really great.
Thanks. You take a
Really
lot of
cool.
pictures of straight flowers and you just go,
Mm.
I think I should play around.
And it was handheld.
I
Yeah.
saw that and I decided I'm going to cut back on wine. Oh, come on, it was dope. Tell me about it.
Congratulations. First place. Bill.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
This
Very
This
well
started
done.
out as a happy accident. I was out on the deck before the full lunar eclipse, trying to get my settings right. I took a lot of images, and when I got back to the computer, I saw these silhouettes on the moon. Couldn't believe it.
Gosh.
It was just because a flock of geese had flown over while I was busy taking pictures.
Wow.
So I had to
Happy
find
accident.
Really
Beautiful.
cool.
I had to
Very creative.
find a way to make use of it.
Wow. That's a beaut.
Well done.
Congratulations.
Beautiful,
Thank you.
beautiful.
Really good. Jeez.
Journalism Basic, one image again. Cindy.
Yay.
Competition.
Great. Good job. Pretty cool.
This was in a parking lot in Sausalito, taken a few years ago.
Oh, wow.
Very cool.
Fun.
Pretty neat.
Congratulations.
That's first place.
There's only one image submitted. So
Journalism Intermediate, 3 images, 3rd place. Amy.
Cool.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nice.
This was a good excuse to go down and play with the kids and
Ah,
wait for Santa to come in.
So sweet.
really neat.
Congratulations. 2nd place. Greg.
it's amazing.
Oh, I love this.
Yes.
I love it.
My gosh.
Great image.
Phew.
You hear, Greg?
Mm,
I think he left already. The phenomenon is great. The
What
image-
temperature does it have to be to melt like that?
Yeah. How come the tree is still there?
It's plastic, it's not glass, I can tell you that.
Oh.
Glass melts at 2000 degrees.
Woo.
I'm a former glass artist and way below that. It slumps 1100, 1200.
Yeah, but that's borosilicate, that's borosilicate, it would be.
No, I'm not talking, oh, this is boromite. Yeah, if it's true, it might be borosilicate, which is higher. But soda lime
But she said that's
be in the
plastic.
lower
Yeah,
1,000.
So what are they arguing about that
I
for?
don't know. Of course, they want to get the temperature right.
Congratulations to Greg. 1st place. Ellen.
All right.
Oh,
Great.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
I'm sure everybody will be going to the tunnel tops to see what it's like. My one word of caution is there's not much shade. Plants have not grown that much yet.
Oh, that's really cool.
I like that shot a lot.
I'm a drummer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Guys look
that'd
so
make,
happy.
Great advertising for the park. It's really
Mhm.
series of
field
events.
trip.
Clear field trip.
No, thank you.
Congratulations. Journalism Advanced, 3 images, 3rd place. Laura.
Handsome George.
Is she still in the Galapagos?
Yeah, it was in the Galapagos. Can you hear me? Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was in the Galapagos. I thought I had that in there when I put the text, but I must have missed it. And I didn't know about how much editing I could do on journalism as far as color and adjustments and things. So
You can do adjustments that return it to its correct original appearance.
okay, all right. Well, I'll know that for next time. Thank you.
Poor shrunken turtle.
Oh. Looks kind of happy though.
Congratulations. 2nd place. Jennifer.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
Very
thank you.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah, this was a really interesting bridge. The first time we saw it was in the fog, so we couldn't go up and see anything. And then on the way back, we got a clear day, so I was excited to be able to go up into it.
I love this shot.
Was that
Beautiful, the
in?
colors, the fall colors, are gorgeous.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, structure.
The fading of the silver, the brig struts.
Congratulations. 1st place. Phil.
Oh, yeah, probably not as strict in the journalistic mode that I originally would want, but I thought it was an interesting combination of shots.
Great shot.
Yeah, very nice.
Good shot. Especially that
I
one.
want the
Wow.
mannequin.
Yeah, really, that's a cool video.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Journalism Masters, honorable mention. Tony.
Oh, yeah.
I take it Tony's gone also.
Oh, yeah.
Past his bedtime.
Congratulations to Tony. Third place. Tony again.
That's a good one.
Great image.
I don't know, is it my perception? It's saying orange and green, and I don't clearly see the green.
I don't see any green.
It's a two-step process. It looks like it was only step one.
Oh,
Is it
step one
one?
followed by the other. Okay.
Yeah.
Congratulations again. Second place. Bill.
Oh, thank you.
All right.
Yes,
That's really cool.
yeah.
Sturgis Mill is amazing, amazing place. Great place to take pictures.
I love those guys in the background there, sitting
I
around
love all the,
drinking moonshine or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice, Bill.
I like the color.
Target rich environment.
I
Yes.
love the blade. Looks like a
Mhm.
cartoon.
Congratulations. First place. Tamara.
Oh, yeah.
Great shot.
Tamara sends her regrets. She is,
She's always in these exotic places.
Interesting compass. Bob, we can hear you. Me to
Yeah.
figure out.
Let Nancy speak for a minute.
Well, she's
Tamara
putting
sends-
fire, she's fanning it to get.
Yeah,
get
but
it
I didn't
on.
even see the figure here. I focused. it.
Mute.
Bob Allwit, you need to mute yourself.
For a minute.
Yeah,
Or Bill Stacy, you can mute someone, I believe.
he's doing it.
that's amazing image.
Anyway,
Yep.
congratulations.
Tamara asked me to send her regrets. She's just waking up now in Cape Town, South Africa, and headed in a couple days to Dubai and Abu Dhabi.
Woo.
Wow.
And then back to work, her husband back to work in Nairobi. So I know she'll be thrilled, and I'll text her right now and let her know.
Yeah, that's
Look forward
great.
to seeing more images.
Yeah.
And this
She's amazing.
portends more great pictures.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wonderful shot.
Yeah, she
Great
was
shot.
in Namibia, so we know there's gonna be some great dunes, trees.
Congratulations to Tamara. Pictorial Basic, 4 images, honorable mention. Ed.
Very nice. Where is that Svalbard?
Is that Norway?
Yeah, I think it's off Norway.
Wow, beautiful, really cool.
Good job, Ed.
Congratulations to Ed. Third place. Lucy.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Oh, wow.
Wow, yeah. Where'd you take that?
Is she here?
I don't think so.
Oh,
I was thinking it was Riverfront. I don't know.
I think it's Spring Lake.
Okay.
it
Oh,
almost
right.
looks
Looks
sort of
like
like Spring Lake.
Yeah, that's what it
Yeah,
is.
it could be.
Definitely.
Amazing.
Good timing.
Mm. Oh, yeah.
From my perspective of reviewing the images, this image was originally in Creative, and she opted to move it to Pictorial. And so if it's in Creative, I'm wondering if the eagle was layered on top of the image.
I'm
I
sure.
bet that's what it was, yeah.
It may not be. She put all 3 in creative. I think she just put it in the first one by mistake.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'll have to ask her.
Inquiring people want to know.
Yeah, we want to know.
Congratulations to Lucy. Second place. Ed.
That's fabulous.
That's really striking.
Wonderful.
That's really cool.
Beautiful.
Image.
Mm. Another
Give me a second.
vol
Sorry,
bar.
Bob.
In first place is.
Congratulations to Ed.
Wow.
First place. Cindy.
All right.
Oh,
Yeah.
got the
Congratulations, Cindy.
trifecta.
That's a beaut.
Beautiful.
Nice shot.
Very nice.
One.
That's three
That-
first places on her first outing.
I know, really.
Well done.
That was a fast shot.
Yeah,
Wow.
800 thousandths.
Must have been right.
8 second. Wow.
Cindy, do you want to say anything about it?
Not much. I'm not a landscape photographer, so I'm shocked that I placed on this actually.
Don't
Well,
sell
where-
yourself.
Where were
Don't sell
you?
yourself short. This is good landscape.
I was gonna say, now you
Where
are
did-
a landscape photographer.
Yeah.
Now you are one.
Yeah, this was taken from the Desert Tower, the high tower, if you're familiar with it in the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Color.
I was out chasing
Colors
mice.
are amazing.
Is this the north rim in front of us to the right?
You're looking out towards the north rim
Yeah.
where the monsoons are. It's out that way.
Wow.
Probably closer to Page. That's what you're looking towards.
July.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Pictorial Intermediate, honorable mention. Greg.
Uh-huh.
Oh, Greg, this is amazing.
Nice,
Love
nice.
those front trees, man.
Beautiful.
They're beautiful.
Yeah.
The grasses.
The sunlight.
Oof.
Ballot.
Congratulations to Greg. Third place. Amy.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you. That was in the Smoky Mountains National Park.
Oh,
Beautiful. The best thing is some of the old structures that are there. You
Yeah.
know, they've got some like Appalachian old buildings and cool stuff like that.
Neat.
Really nice.
Very cool.
Very cool.
Congratulations. Second place. Ellen.
Oh, I love
Nice.
this.
It's a
Oh,
gorgeous
great.
picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Her mother did her face painting. Did a great job.
Her mother did her face.
This is completely clear.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Congratulations. First
thank you.
place. Sherry.
Harry, this is my favorite picture of yours of all time.
Oh, thank you. I'm gonna tell you, it's pretty fun.
Pretty awesome.
I'm in love with the model, so there you go.
I love that you met him for both.
Great
Great
square.
image.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Congratulations. Pictorial Advanced, 5 images. Honorable mention. Bob.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, this truly was taken in the Sonoma Suds laundromat. And there was a plastic shield between, across the counter between the clerk and the customer. And there were multiple reflections. It was kind of hard to figure out, but that object in the middle is a clock on the wall. And then you have these two scrubbing boards, and then the reflection of the window sign saying laundry. And it had a very impressionistic sense to me.
Yeah.
I like
Fantastic.
the color values and the combinations and the flowers down below.
Yeah.
And so I just took it, and then all I did was crop a little. I guess I should have cropped a bit more off that left edge.
I don't know.
Okay.
I like that. That's
Yeah, I
nice.
like
The
It's
sense
like a
of,
washing machine in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought it was a dryer.
three-dimensionality.
That
I
was,
took I took the writing as East European. It took me 30 seconds to see laundry.
That's why I put the word in the title.
Nice, Bob.
yeah, good.
That's great.
Good capture.
Yeah, good seeing.
Congratulations. Honorable mention again. Linda.
Oh, nice.
Thank you. That was taking Napa wetlands on one of our field trips with Tony this year.
I love that.
Yeah,
Very
it's
good
pretty.
image.
Linda, I've got to say, I knew this was yours.
I thought you
This reminds me of something else you did. The little sticks coming out of the water. Very
Oh, yeah.
Japanese.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's a neat
Yeah.
image.
I want you to print it really large and show it.
Yeah.
At Harvey's.
I printed it little and it's at Harvey's.
Right. It just makes a beautiful panorama.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Great panorama.
Congratulations. Third place,
What was a selfie shot?
Bob.
Yes, I love it.
That's a great
Nice.
picture. It's
This,
fascinating.
I had submitted this some while back. This was taken on a trip with Harold Davis at Chimney Rock in Point Reyes. And this was one of his wabi-sabi flowers that was sort of over the hill, but somebody pasted it up on a window, and I got this shot against the light, but it was a white background, so I combined that with another image of dune grass that I had, to give it a textured background.
Nice.
And, I just liked the shape and the sense of balance.
Great title too.
Yeah, great
Thank
title.
you. Tony helped me with that.
Good for Tony.
Thank you, Tony. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Second place, Ronnie.
Wow, Ronnie.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's a beaut.
Yeah, it's a signature Ronnie.
Yeah, so is there a person back there, Ronnie?
Yeah, what's in the reflection?
No,
doll
I
head?
can't see anything.
A
on
doll
mine.
head on the left that you stuck in the
Nice.
water.
I thought it was a cat.
Looks like a
Sure.
duck to me.
Sure looks like it.
No. Oh, I see what you mean. No, it isn't.
Maybe it's Bosch.
I'm not sure what that is, but this is not a pastel. I mean, to me, these are jewel tones. That's what I was going for. But yeah, it takes a long time to do these.
I bet. Wow.
And I have to get inspired. So I bought these ornamental kales, and that was my inspiration.
Nice.
Very
Wow.
beautiful.
Really
Very good.
beautiful.
Really pretty, nice
Thank
color.
Love them. Colors.
Gorgeous, gorgeous.
Lovely.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
First place, Guy.
Oh, that's great.
This is amazing.
Amazing.
Stunning, stunning. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing color.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Great composition. Great
I
light.
can see this as the opening, like the opening scene of that Yellowstone series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's Kevin Costner. Is that-
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, really.
Just over the hill.
See a
Yeah.
plane standing On the there, horizon. Steam coming off it.
Congratulations to Guy.
Yes.
That guy. Wow.
Pictorial Masters, 6 images. Honorable mention, Tony.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
I knew that
great.
was his.
Yeah, that's,
Effective
love it.
light. Oh, God.
Mm.
Congratulations to Tony. Honorable mention, Jack.
Oh,
Love
my.
this.
I adore this.
I do
Beautiful.
too. It's so
So
gorgeous.
subtle and great.
Mhm.
Yeah, Jack, you are a master at this.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
The Dune Master.
The Dune Master.
Love it. You don't see many-
Congratulations.
You don't see many color photos from Jack. Usually it's black and white.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Lots of dune stuff, but this is like
Yeah,
subtle and
that's great.
beautiful.
Yeah, really minimalist.
Very.
Congratulations to Jack. Honorable mention, Tamara.
Yeah.
It's lovely.
Her people are just amazing.
Yeah, they really are.
Yeah, she's got a talent.
She does.
Love the light and the faces, the angle of the faces, the colors, trees in the background. Just a lot to like about this image.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even a little bit of water.
Yeah.
Even
Those
the
are
trees are
incredible.
kind of sharp.
Those are incredible colors that the women have.
Yes.
Yes.
The skilled handwork that went into them is amazing.
That's, yeah.
Even the hands are very interesting.
Yeah. Good.
Congratulations to Tamara. Third place, Bill.
Thank you.
In your
Great.
finished rock
This was fairly close, 200 millimeter. Had a really good spot.
on that left front tire.
It's amazing.
How does the driver see what's going on?
It
They
doesn't
sit
even
very
look
low,
like there's a
but
driver in there. Did he jump out earlier or something?
There.
no, that's it. They don't have any glass, of course, because of the rocks. and
Oh, I
everything
see him
else.
now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he has
He's
a
in there.
helmet on.
He's sitting low.
There's a red
Yeah.
stripe on his helmet, looks like.
I like how tight the frame.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Second place, Mike.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Love the light in this expression.
Light is amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sneakers are holding him up.
No, it's the laces.
Oh.
Congratulations to Mike. First place, Steve.
Oh,
All right.
That's
Oh,
wow.
I guess that paid off. I had not been doing much photography hardly at all. This was a fishing trip up at Lake Sonoma. And
Oh, no kidding.
my buddy was fishing and I kept saying, can you go over here? Can you? And he would pay no attention to me at all. So I had to just kind of wait until we got in a position where I could take pictures of the boat, but the fog kept changing, the lake kept changing. So I must have 70 images of this boat. And I spent 3 different times editing it. I knew exactly what I wanted, but it took me 3 tries to get it. And I still struggled with whether I really liked it or not. So thank you. I'm glad.
Great title too.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you lightened it up, Steve.
Yes. Yep. It's always my last thing. I actually put it in Photoshop and I hit auto. I take note of what's changed. And then I, do a couple of little adjustments, but I kind of use that as my default brightness adjustment just to make sure. So anyway, thank you.
Cool.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Nice work.
Beautiful.
Congratulations. And
drum roll.
Our winner for the evening.
Can't even imagine.
Ah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I knew it was a winner.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, that one just, I could watch that one for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stunning.
Round.
That's a stunner.
I'd have to smoke a cigarette after just seeing that.
TMI.
And you did an amazing job. I loved all your critiques, your analysis of the images. I mean, it was just
Yeah.
really, really excellent.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
really good.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Everything was positive, not too negatory.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent job, Doug.
You
Thank
Thank
can
you.
come once a month.
you, man.
I know.
A lot of insights.
Come back soon.
Want to be our
Yes.
judge?
What are you doing next month?
Nancy, I'm glad to see you're okay. I was worried about you.
Yeah. We were all thinking about you.
Evacuated, we'll be back in a few days.
You're in Palo Alto? Uh-huh. And Steve, you're okay?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
haven't floated down the river yet.
I'm at
Oh, both
flooded about
Steve.
39 feet, so it hasn't come close, although they were threatening to get pretty close, and then it got
I
down.
know.
So I've been so damn nervous. This is the longest time I've just been puckered the whole time.
Yeah.
How far away
And I
from
can't
you,
work.
the river, are you, Steve?
There's a creek right behind my house, and I actually just looked this morning. There's a hoist I have in the back of my house.
Yeah.
And I had a piece of plywood underneath there, and I realized the other morning, water from that creek came all the way up to the back, and the plywood had floated up. That's 7 feet away from the basement of my house, and maybe 6 inches away. So that creek almost got my basement flooded. It wouldn't have been a lot, but still, you know.
Wow.
Yeah.
So close, it's within inches.
You went through
But the
hell
river was
last
not
time.
close. It was the creek by my house that was about to do the damage, and that's never happened before here.
Looks like you're
Did you
sitting in
see-
salt water now.
Yeah.
You heard about the free sandbags, didn't you?
The what?
The free
Free sandbags.
sandbags.
Oh, yeah. Good
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah. This is Monte Rio, the last flood, 2019, was it?
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
and,
That
and that's
word
when
too.
we're 125 feet up, so we just become an island. So this was able to come down and able actually to get across the Monte Rio Bridge. And I put, well, some of you may recall this. I put
I remember
salmon.
the image.
I put salmon in the water.
That is-
Oh, this is it. You're showing that picture. Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
great.
kokanee salmon, that were spawning up at Lake Tahoe.
Yep. The reality, it'd be more like poop in the water. Would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That's what's in it.
Yeah.
Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed for you guys out there.
Yeah.
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 Couple more days, would be good.
Yep.
Well, Bill and Steve, another great show. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
for all the hard
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
Pat,
Pat
thank you.
for
Thank
his
you.
writing.
Appreciate
Pat,
it.
you're a,
The judge, thank you.
yeah, you're a rock star, Pat.
Yeah.
Congratulations. and
Thanks.
New members too. Thank you.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good
Welcome.
show.
Trifecta.
I think Cindy,
Wonderful new
Cindy.
members.
I think Cindy got a nice welcome.
Yeah.
I think she
It's all
didn't tell.
downhill from here.
No.
Well,
All right.
See you
Good
in a
night,
couple of
Okay.
weeks.
Good
Have a
night.
good one, everyone.
Good
night,
night.
all.
Thank you. Hey.
All right.